This is Sharp Money, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Thrilled to talk to Nate Tice. Does a hell of a job over the Athletic NFL analyst. You can find Nate on Twitter at Nate_Tice, of course, quarterback, UCF, Wisconsin, assistant in the NFL, and he joins us. First off, Nate, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. We were talking Bieniemy and Rivera, so let's go away from the drama and talk about the product on the field. The win total set at 6.5 for the Commanders. This is a team that won 8 games last year. The defense is rock solid, skill position solid on offense. The question, though, of course, the quarterback and Howell.
Yeah, and that's kind of where your answer, that's why the answer of the total is at about 6 games, which is pretty surprising. We just did a top 10 defenses pod, and I know we're going to talk about Howell, but I had the Commanders as my 3rd best defense going into the season.
Wow.
It's a truly fantastic, truly potential to be elite unit, especially with their first-round pick. They added their corner, which shored up kind of like one of their weaknesses, but built through the spine and a fantastic defensive line is usually going to keep you in a lot of games. And they're playing, they're in the NFC East. The NFC overall is not a powerhouse this year. There's only a true couple elite teams. They happen to both be in the NFC East, which kind of hinders that. But with Howell, it's kind of just hold on. I think you can't really buy too much into it. They at least have Jacoby Brissett on that team, which makes me optimistic that if he does have to take the reins, they can hit the over for that, actually, if we want to talk the gambling line, because I think that defense is going to keep them in so many games outside their division. They also play kind of the 3rd or 4th ranked schedule, which I think will help throughout this year because there's not a lot of heavyweight teams in the NFC. So I think even if Brissett takes over, or if it is Howell, they have enough talent and hopefully some health with their offensive line to at least hit that over number than 6.5, because I just think the defense will just carry them throughout 17 weeks.
Nate, I want to ask you, I love that you ranked them 3rd overall. Tell me what it is on the defense side of the ball, what you like about this defense. You mentioned Forbes coming in. I love him out of Mississippi State. He may score more touchdowns than Jahan Dotson this year.
I know. He just has a nose for the ball. Yeah. It's funny, when I went in to watch him, he's built like Kevin Durant. He's like $165 maybe, probably after the shower with 2 towels on. Honestly, that defensive line is why I love them. And I mean, it's not really surprising if you just look at the roster and you see first round pick, and their 4th best pass rusher is the guy that won Defensive Rookie of the Year and was the number 2 overall pick in Chase Young. And he's their, I would consider, after what he showed last year coming back, is Montez Sweat had a great year. Jonathan Allen and Damon Payne are a fantastic defensive tackle duo. So you just drop in Chase Young. Hopefully he plays 80% of what his potential could be. And that's why I love this defense, is because I think they can bring it all 3 downs, get after the quarterback, and they play the run really well. This defense was 1st in success rate last year. 1st, like no caveats, no disclaimers. 1st overall defense by success rate. That means they keep offenses behind the chains over and over. So that's what it starts with the front. And that's what makes me excited about that defense.
Nate Tice, the Athletic, at Nate_Tice. And I bring up the Twitter handle because you posted a few clips last week from the Falcons offense. So let's shift to the Atlanta Falcons, Nate. 8.5's the win total. Expectations are there. We had Wes Durham, the voice of the Falcons, on last week, and he was going on and on about Arthur Smith. Loved Smith. We don't know anything about Smith because he's kind of a nondescript, quiet guy, but the offense is very interesting. Why don't you elaborate?
A term I came across with someone else that broke down the Falcons. I've been super optimistic about them. I'm a sicko that watched them last year just because I was curious what they're doing. They were an island of misfit toys, but it's credit to Arthur Smith is that he is kind of an offensive savant as far as being creative in the run game and formations and personnel groupings. This Falcons offense last year ranked highly in 5 different personnel groupings, meaning they used 3 wide receivers, which everyone uses, but then they use a fullback, then they use 3 tight ends, 2 tight ends. They change up their looks and they make it really a pain for defenses. And they were a dang good offense last year. They ended up ranking about 10th, 12th, 8th, and various, underlying metrics. And that made me, and that's starting with Marcus Mariota, who couldn't hit the broadside of the barn. But a term that I really liked with this offense was alignment agnostic, meaning that they are going to have a kind of a positionless offense. And that's what the Bijan Robinson draft pick was about, because he's a fantastic catcher that can split outside. So they can get all these now groupings with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Matt Collins, who they signed from the Raiders, who's a big tight end. Jonnu Smith, who Arthur Smith had when he was in Tennessee. So you just get all these guys together, and they can line them up throughout the formation. And they're playing a weak schedule. I have an alternate line bet on them at 9.5 games. I think actually at circa. So I bumped it up just to get a little more juice, because the line is up, which has been really annoying for me, because I think it was originally, 7.5 games, and then they bumped it up all the way to 8.5. Maybe it was at 8. I'm trying to remember correctly, but I got the alternate line wins because I'm very optimistic about this offense. I think it could be a top 10 unit, even if Desmond quarterback, because if he's at that level, I think the defense has to get better with their investments. They spent a lot of free agency money there. So just overall, it's just a really creative offense. And I think an excellent offensive play caller and play designer, better offense overall, better offense. Their offensive line's great. So I think a little bit of health luck. This can be a top 10 offense and an average-ish defense. It has me pretty excited about the Falcons this year. So I'm going to be watching them week in, week out. They're kind of my hipster favorite that's might be going mainstream a little bit. So that's how I'm right now.
Nate, love your breakdown of the offense. There's not a bigger Bijan Robinson fan out there than me. But when I look at Desmond Ridder, he's the best bounce passer at UC since Nick Van Exel. Explain to me why this guy is going to be good at quarterback. Arthur Smith, you said something that's absolutely so accurate. He is an incredible offensive mind, but it's Desmond Ridder that is the same issue Washington, the quarterback position, is where I have a concern.
I think the two things, even if he does spray the ball a little bit, I will admit that I was a fan of Ridder coming out of the draft, that kind of a weaker draft class of 2022, is he's extremely intelligent. He is already was handling protection checks and kills and audibles, doing all those types of things that you usually give to quarterbacks in year 2 and beyond once they kind of get their feet wet. He was handling that last preseason. And why that matters is this offense on first and second down, it's not going to fool anybody that they're going to be running the ball and running play action, which kind of lifts it's training wheels for the quarterback. So even if you have an average-ish quarterback, that can at least make them look decent. So that's why on first and second down, they have an answer. And then his brain and his legs, he's a legit 4-5 guy. That makes me excited about their third down offense, that they can at least be decent. So I just think that's why I'm optimistic about Ridder, is he just handles all the difficult stuff that you might get thrown at him. They were one of the most pressured teams last year, meaning most blitz teams. So if he gets the offensive line sorted out, they're a pretty talented unit, get going the right direction. They can have explosive plays on third and fourth down that maybe they didn't have before because Mariota wasn't asked to handle those types of things. So I think that's his brain and his legs makes me excited that his floor will be pretty high. If he's a little bit better than Mariota throwing the ball, that's where I see that 18th best quarterback possibly. And maybe that's why I'm optimistic about the offense.
Are you optimistic in division? The Saints are your favorites at plus 120. The Falcons, your second betting favorite at plus 215. Do you like them in division, Nate?
I do. I do. Long story short, I think it's a better number to have. I think that number was at plus 300 a little bit ago. So it's been bet down, like hovering around that number. So I am optimistic about them in that division. I think like I said, it's a weaker, them and the Saints, I believe, have some of the weakest strengths of schedules that they're going against, weakest schedule. So I think that's why they can hang with them. And I think that the arrows are pointing up for their young guys. So maybe they go overtake the Saints if they don't have some health like they have in the past.
Patrick, I'm just flabbergasted. Not at this pick of the Falcons. He's just made a compelling argument, and I hate being wrong. I just didn't see it with this team, but they've got the pieces offensively, and I think he makes a great point in terms of what they can be.
Well, it's watch out for the Heineke hive. This Taylor Heineke, wherever he goes, Ridder should be worried, Nate, because everybody becomes obsessed with Heineke, who throws the YOLO balls up in the air.
I have never given another quarterback comparison for Heineke, like, oh, he plays like this guy. I've compared him to Johnny Knoxville, because that's kind of just he's a jackass member playing quarterback. That's Taylor Heineke, and I mean that as a compliment.
that is the quote of the show. Nate Tice, The Athletic, at Nate_Tice. Make sure you give him a follow. Great stuff on the numbers as well. We'll get you on during the regular season, Nate. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.